make it easier. So we'll take you through the new things about TimeTrack. Let's start with some background, though. I think, as everyone is aware, the National SAM project is growing. We're currently in 325 schools, 61 districts, 13 states, and just now adding the District of Columbia. We have 3 Race to the Top states that do SAMs. There are 3 models. We have a new evaluation that not only proves that it works, but it works really well. So we're really looking forward to releasing that next month through the Wallace Foundation. We have a national program board, and we just finished our first year under fee-for-service, where we charged fees for all of our services, and we finished the year in the black, so that's good. We also finished with more schools. We expect to about double the number of schools we have in the current year. Reason I tell you that is it's important to keep in mind that the whole purpose of the SAM project is to help a principal not just change their time, but change their time in a way that improves teacher practice. That first box, improve teacher practice, we know is the most important thing that a principal can do in terms of student achievement. And so if you think of SAM as a process, you know that it starts with readiness, and then there's baseline data collection where a shadow comes and helps the principal understand how they're currently spending their time. And then the SAM and the principal engage in daily TimeTrack meetings. And these TimeTrack meetings are intended to help the principal increase the amount of time and they're spending instructionally, and also begin asking the question about how it's changing teacher practice. Time change coaches like Marcia and Nathan, they make a point of then working with the SAM and principal, so they really are asking those deeper questions about how it's changing practice in their school. And then a year later, you see shadowing again, so you can get a before and after picture of how the principal is doing. Now, we've highlighted the baseline data collection and the year later data collection in red because we want you to make sure that you think about how the principal's starting point and where the principal started affects where you work with them in terms of TimeTrack. So let's look at TimeTrack now. I'm going to pull up a TimeTrack calendar. And the first thing I want to ask you is, do we know by looking at this calendar where this principal started when they had their annual or their baseline data collection? Can you tell by looking at this calendar view? I'm going to pick on Marcia Lay. Marcia, can you tell by looking at this calendar whether or not or where this person started?
No.
No, you can't. And so that's the first change we built into TimeTrack. If you go up to the settings menu, and you go down to where it says Time Task Analysis, and if you click, you will see already built into your TimeTrack calendar the principal's shadowing history. Every time the principal's been shadowed, this data gets updated showing the principal's progress from year to year on instructional time. Questions or comments on how to find this information? I'm going to return to the calendar. And we'll let TimeTrack catch up with us. The next new feature I want to show you is one that's kind of cool. Look up on Friday. Under the word Contact, it says School Pictures Today. This is a new feature we've added to TimeTrack to allow the SAM or the principal to put notes on each day, so as kind of a reminder. It might be something that's happening in the building. Now, if I go back to Wednesday, you see it says click to add a note. If I click there, I can go ahead and put the note, call Marcia Lay, and if I click set, it will now appear underneath and right above the day Wednesday, August 24th. Now, this has been added at the request of SAMs and principals who simply wanted to be able to put a reminder of something they wanted to do or something that was happening on that day. Questions or comments about this new TimeTrack feature?
Mark, is it only one opportunity to put one reminder, or can you add several?
It gives you enough for one line, so I could put 2 things here. So let's open this event again. Call Marcia Lay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
School Pictures, or I'll put pics and click set. And now what it will show will be 2 items above Wednesday, August 24th. But it gives you 1 line to put in information.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And other questions or comments before I move on? Now, on that same vein, something that SAM principal teams have asked us for a long time would be to have the ability to put in a conflicting event. TimeTrack will only count 1 event, but could we, for example, at lunch, also schedule something else from 11 to 11:30? And the answer is, yeah, you can do that now. If I click in an open space,
This is it.
and
Volume
I say I want this event to start at 11 and go to 11:30, and it's going to be a management issue, and it's going to be office work prep. I can click add, and even though it conflicts, TimeTrack will go ahead and put it at the same time. Now, this is another way that you can put in a reminder or a note that you just want to be reminded of that something else is occurring at the same time. Now, again, if you're on speakerphone, please put yourself on mute so we don't hear the other conversations. So what TimeTrack is doing for us now is it is showing 2 events at the same time. Now, the system is only going to track the time for colors other than red, and so the conflicting event comes up in red. And so it won't count the event in terms of your data, but it will allow you to display it on the calendar. Questions or comments about scheduling a conflicting event?
Mark, I have a question.
Go right ahead.
This is Stephanie Tim from Mount Vernon. I am wondering then how it knows which event to count. Like maybe the new one that you just put on, the conflicting one, is actually the one that you want it to count.
If you want to count the conflicting event, what you'd have to do is move the other one or delete it. And then it will change the color. You know as the SAM or the principal or as the coach that the event being counted is any color that shows up other than red. If it's red, it's not being counted. So let's make it count. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and open up this lunch, and I'm going to delete it. And so by doing so, you're going to see the conflicting event will turn, except it's still conflicting below. I'll have to move it up. Is going to turn to yellow, unless it's going to make me open it up again. Let's see. Have to wait just a moment. Yep, there we go. Now it's counting that event. Questions or comments about conflicting events?
Now, if you added lunch back in as the second event, would the lunch turn red?
It would. And so I could, let's see, let me go back to office work prep. And it's 10:40 to 11:10, so I just needed to know that so I can enter a new event. And so I'll go back, and I'm going to make it personal and lunch. And I need to make it 10:40. a.m. And what was the ending time? Do you remember? Say 11:10, and I'm going to click Add. And now, as it processes, lunch becomes the one it's not counting.
Okay.
Here's what else I could have done. I could have dragged, because you know on every event, and I'm going to come down here to, on Thursday, this cluster meeting. On every event, there's a couple of navigation tools you're familiar with. The equal sign at the bottom of any event, if I put my cursor over it, I get a star or a crosshair. If I click down on my mouse and drag it down, I can make the event longer. So it tells TimeTrack that the number of minutes being spent is longer, and it does it automatically. Okay? And you also know on the left-hand side of any event, there's a shaded area. And if I put my cursor over that shaded area, I can click on it and drag it to another place. So I'll drag it over to dental appointment on Tuesday and let go. And that moves the event, and I can go to the side of a conflicting event and pull it instead of deleting it, and put it in an open space, and then that removes the conflict, or in this, and I can then reopen the lunch event and click Update, and now it no longer conflicts. Questions or comments about conflicting events? Alrighty, next thing I'd like to share with you is something that we've long wanted to be able to do, but we never really knew how to do it. And the technician came up with a way to do it that I think will make a lot of SAMs happy, because it's going to save them quite a bit of time. Every day, like on Friday, this particular SAM meets with his or her principal. That SAM goes over with the principal every event from the prior day. And they ask the principal, did you really do these things? Well, let's take this event, which is called a cluster meeting, which was supposed to be an hour and 10 minutes from 11:30 to 12:40. Let's say the principal says, you know, I was only there about half the time. The SAM can open up the event now, and if you look at the bottom, it says instruction amount. And it says 50%, but let's change it to say 60%, just for the heck of it. And there's a reconcile button. If the SAM presses that reconcile button, what it does is it automatically creates two events. One that shows the actual amount of time the principal spent instructionally in green, and a yellow event that shows the amount of time that was spent managerially. The purpose of this is to make it faster and easier for the SAM and the principal to reconcile the calendar. So again, on any event, if it's already happened, and I'm going to delete this one out so it gets out of the way here, but for any event that's already occurred, I can open the event, and I can tell TimeTrack what percent was actually instructionally spent, or the principal is actually there. I can also use this drop-down menu to change it to minutes, because the principal might say, well, I was there for 30 minutes. And so I can change this to 30 minutes and click Update. And what it does is it creates two events. And there we go. And it'll show the part that was management, the part that was instructional. Questions or comments before we move on? Alrighty, next thing to show you on TimeTrack, we talked a minute ago about the navigation tools that are built into TimeTrack for every event. The equal sign on the bottom that allows you to lengthen or shorten an event. The shaded area on the left of the event box that allows you to click and drag it to another place. Many of you probably have already noticed there's a new little thing up in the upper right-hand corner of every event, and if you put your cursor over it, it will show the word clone, C-L-O-N-E, or copy. If you put your cursor over an event where it has that little clone, you click your mouse, as I just did, look what happens. You then create an exact copy of what you had before. And so the value of this is if your principal says, I need to do a cluster meeting, just like I did on Monday with the very same folks, you can click that little clone box, and then you can take the event and you can drag it wherever you'd like. So I'd like to drag it to the future, but this is a pretty full calendar, but we'll put it on Thursday right now. And what will happen is TimeTrack will take it and process the data and move it, the clone version of it, over to Thursday. Except it wouldn't because it didn't have enough space here. So let me create some space and try that again. And we're going to also make the end time on Friday a little bit later. Well, try to. Okay, let's try that again. Make our end time a little bit later on Friday as that processes. And now I'm going to take my cloned event, and I'll go to the navigation side on the left-hand side where it's shaded. I will click and drag this event over to Thursday. Let go. And what will happen now is TimeTrack will process this and move the cloned event over. So now the event I had on Monday that the principal says, hey, I want to do that again on Thursday, I can save myself as a SAM some time by going to the clone box, clicking, and then dragging the new event over. Question or comments about cloning or copying and pasting an event? All righty. Question for Coletta. Coletta, are you with us right now? Donna Fowler, are you with us from Gwinnett?
Yes.
Okay. Donna, I am curious to know if you've ever wanted to divide time up between people that you are tracking. So for example, let's say your principal was doing an observation, but instead of just being with Felix, this principal is also going to go visit Carol Lensing for part of the time. If you ever wanted to be able to do that, check more than one person?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, you can do that now. And on the event box, do you see at the top where it says split time between individuals?
Mm-hmm.
I can actually tell TimeTrack that during this hour that I want to have half of it be credited to time with Carol Lensing and another half with Felix. Or if I want to do thirds, I can do a third with Jim, a third with Felix, a third with Carol. So that's another new change on TimeTrack, allowing you to split time that the principal is scheduled between individuals. Now the reverse of that is to be able to, well first before we move on, it also allows you now to add a new individual right in the event box. And so I'm going to go ahead and add Donna Fowler here. So I just type in Donna's name, and I click Add, and she is now automatically added into my individuals. And so anytime I open an event, she'll come up now. And so that's just a time saver that's been added for you. So I could split my time between each of those individuals. Or if I want to have them be part of a group, I can say which group I wish to track. And so now I can do groups as well. Now to do a group, I'm going to do update here. In order to set a group and create one, I go to the settings menu, and I go all the way down to where it says individual group setup, and I click. Now on this screen, at the top, I can upload a file of teacher names if I wish, simply by choosing File and uploading the file. Anything I have on for a list of teachers would then appear right here underneath where it says Current Individual List. I can add new names right here where it says Add New Individual Names. I can also rename folks, but I have a new piece now that I haven't been able to do before, and it's called Creating a Group. And so let's create a group, and let's make it English. I just type in the box English, and then I click Add New Group. So you can see that English is now listed as a group. I'm going to click on English because I would like to put people in that group. So I go down to the bottom, and do you see where it says Populate Group? I'm going to click Populate, and I can tell it who I want in that group. Donna, Debbie, Carol, Anne, and Paul. And I click Continue. And so now that has created a group for me, English, with those members, Ann Rossiter, Carol Lensing, Debbie Daniels, Donna Fowler, Paul Spirecki. So now when I go back to my calendar, we'll let TimeTrack catch up with us here. I can now go to, and I'm going to go to another week so it's not so crowded here. I can open up an event I wish to enter, and I can go down to this drop-down menu and I can pick the English group. And by clicking on the Apply Group button, it will tell TimeTrack that these are the members of the group, and there they are, Ann, Carol, Debbie, Donna, and Paul. And by doing that, TimeTrack will show that I have spent this time with this group, but will also show on the individual reports for Ann and Carol and Debbie and Donna and Paul that they spent time with me in this particular group. Questions or comments about this new feature on TimeTrack? The other thing that's kind of nice about this feature on groups is you can also then track time that your principal is spending on a particular project. And so let's say your principal or your district administrator has an assignment and they have to do a board report. And they have a committee they're going to work on to do that. They can create a new group called Board Report. They can then populate it or not, their choice, with particular people. Say Debbie is going to help Ann Rossiter do the board report. And then, anytime you're entering a new event, you can tell TimeTrack to keep track of the time the principal spends, and we'll go ahead and open up an event. And board report, we'll say apply group. It will then track the amount of time that the principal spends on that particular project. That can really be helpful for a principal or a district administrator in keeping track of their time spent. Questions or comments about what we've seen so far? Alrighty, so far what we've done today is we've talked about how you can find where your time task analysis data is, and that's under the settings menu. We've also looked at how you can navigate more freely within TimeTrack, how the event entry box allows you to reconcile a meeting, how you can add an individual in the event box, how you can also divide up the time for a person. We've also talked about how you can clone an event and do a conflicting event. I want to move now to the area underneath the calendar on the left-hand side. It says dashboards, and I'm going to show you the first dashboard, which you've seen before. And this is simply showing that this principal's year every year starts in April. And this is her goal line. This is the blue. And so she's been at or above goal for all the months, April, May, and then August. June and July were her summer vacation. You've seen this dashboard before. So we decided to add some new dashboards that we thought might provide some additional information. And when I say we, SAMs and principals asked for this data and this information, and we created these new dashboards to try and provide it. So underneath Dashboard Progress, there's a new dashboard called Individual Impact. This Individual Impact dashboard automatically pulls the 5 teachers in the building who the principal is spending the most time with, and immediately shows you who those 5 are, and specifically how the principal is spending time with these people. And so, Ann Rossiter, are you still on the line with us?
I am.
Okay. So, Ann, you can see that Paul Sprecky, that the principal spent 10 hours with that person. If I look down in the left-hand corner, I will see Paul's graph, and it shows that the principal has spent an hour and a half in walkthroughs with Paul, an hour in feedback, 2 hours in observation, and about 5 hours in planning curriculum and assessment meetings. So one of the things you'd want to do, Ann, is show your district administrator, here's the time you spent with Paul. Does it make sense that this would be helping Paul change his use of time and how he spends time in a classroom? So this data can be really helpful. Now, you might wonder then if the teacher I want to see isn't one I'm spending the top 5, isn't one of my top 5 time users. How do I see their data? Well, let me show you that, because we've done a shortcut for you on TimeTrack to get you right there. So I'm going to go back. Underneath the calendar for the month in the left-hand corner, I have my dashboards. I looked at the progress dashboard, and we just looked at the individual impact dashboard that pulled out my top 5 time users. I can go down to instructional time and click on individual, and I can see all descriptors, or all the time spent for any individual in my building. And so I'm going to go down and just pick, let's say, Dr. Oatman, show graph, and it will give me a representation of the time I've spent just with this particular teacher. In this case, I haven't spent any time with him. One thing to note, though, that's kind of interesting about these new graphs is there's a letter above or associated with each descriptor or color. And we did that so it'd be easier to tell who you were actually looking at and what the descriptor was. Let me see if I can show you that another way. I'm going to click individual. I'm going to do all descriptors for an individual, and this time I'm going to enter someone that I know that there's data. Oh, this is for the new year. It isn't going to show me his individual data there. I can also compare individuals on any particular descriptor. And so I'll go feedback, and I will click a group of people. Next, show graph. And this will, if you've actually entered the data, will show the amount of time I've spent by comparison on feedback with a group of people. Questions or comments before we continue? All righty. I'm going to return to the calendar now. And we looked at individual impact as a dashboard. And again, these shortcuts are right below the monthly calendar where it says dashboards. We looked at the progress dashboard, the individual impact dashboard. Now we're going to go to the group impact dashboard. This will show the amount of time that I have spent with individual groups in my building so far this year. It will also give me a breakout of what I actually did with those groups. So just like the individual impact dashboard, the group impact dashboard is showing my time spent with groups. So in the math group, I've spent about 2 hours in student supervision, about 8 hours in walkthrough, about 4.5 hours in feedback, about 12 hours in observation, and about 11 hours in planning and curriculum, for a total of almost 40 hours so far this year. Questions or comments before we continue? The reason it's only showing 4 is I've only entered 4 groups so far in this test calendar. Going to return to the calendar now. And I am going to return to the PowerPoint for a minute. And I want to take a look at the features we've talked about so far. We talked about auto reconcile, and we also talked about copy, paste, and clone. And we've talked about how you enter groups and individuals. We've talked about conflicting events and how they occur. We've also talked about how you enter a new person or a group. We've also talked about where you find your time task analysis data under the settings menu. We didn't talk about auto select, so let's return to the TimeTrack calendar. And let's look at a new feature. It's up at the top. We see today, and then we see new event, which if you click that, it will just allow me to do a new event. But there's also a new button called Auto Select. Auto Select is here because Principals and SAMs told us, gosh, if I need to find a time on Friday, August 26th, it's kind of hard to tell how much time there is between this observation and this feedback session. And so I kind of like to know how I can find an open time on Friday to do something. So auto-select is just what it says, a way of finding an open time. So I'm going to push auto-select. It knows today is Friday, so it looks at this 1 week, and you can see Monday is all in gray because we've already passed Monday, but it also shows all the unscheduled time for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then for Friday, it shows the open times that are available that are 10 minutes or greater. And so it tells me I have a 30-minute block of time from 11:30 to 12, and except that's going gray because it's after 11:30 Eastern time right now. And it also shows a time from 12:30 to 1. So if I click Find, it will automatically take me to the first time that's really open on my calendar that I can schedule my principal. So if I'm a SAM or a secretary, auto-select is really helpful because if someone calls and says, I need 30 minutes of the principal's time, what's the first time that's available? I can click auto-select, click Find, and it will automatically bring up the first 30-minute block of time that is unscheduled. Questions or comments about this new TimeTrack feature?
Mark, if that time slot doesn't work, how do you go to the next available one?
To go to the next available one, well, it's supposed to do that for you automatically, but we're finding as we're testing this that it doesn't appear to be doing it. So what you'd have to do is look on your calendar here and say, well, there isn't a next available 30-minute one on this date, so you'd have to cancel. You'd have to go to the next week on Monday, August 29th. And now it's showing lots of time, so auto-select doesn't even come up.
Okay.
So so to answer your question, we're not sure why it's not going into the next week, and we're going to have to ask the developer, but it's supposed to.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? As far as we can tell, what he's done with auto-select is he's made it active just for the current week, and we wanted it for the current month, so it would open any time. So we still have to talk with him about how to adjust that. So right now it's just working on the week you're in. Alrighty, let's go back to the PowerPoint for a moment. We have done the auto-select, auto-reconcile, where you reconcile how much time was actually spent on an event. We've done the cloning or copying, pasting, groups and individuals, conflicting events, entering a new person, and we've looked at time task analysis data. We've looked at the 3 dashboards. I'm not sure, did we look at the school profile? Let's go back and look here real quick. The school profile information is found by going to the Settings menu and clicking General Options. Here, you have addresses, telephone numbers for the administrator in the SAM and the school. You also have calendar information at the bottom. You can see that the TimeTrack start month is set automatically, and so you can't change that. You can change your default times in terms of your normal starting time and ending time. The baseline score is actually supposed to stay current and the same. And so this profile sheet information is available for you, so you can update information as you need to. So let's return to the calendar. Go back to the PowerPoint. We looked at conflicting events, so how you can enter a conflicting event, new person or group, and time task data. So let me see where else we are here. Let's go back to the calendar for a minute. So what we've attempted to do with this newest version of TimeTrack is incorporate all of the requests we've had for changes and updates so it's easier for the user. As you use the calendar, when you come across things that would make it easier for you, we'd sure like you to let us know. Because if you email Jim Mercer, or you email me, or tell us, either one, we'll be happy to let the developer know what the new changes we'd like to have included in TimeTrack are. That will make it faster and easier for us. Now, what we've done with the developer is he is continuously improving TimeTrack. And so whenever something comes up, we just go ahead and add it to his list. And so those rollouts will happen throughout the year. We've covered a number of things today about the new TimeTrack calendar. Are there other questions that anyone has in the group that you'd like to talk about at this point? It is a quiet group. Yolanda Clark, are you still there with us? Stephanie Tim, are you still with us?
I am, and actually I do have a question.
Go right ahead.
I'm curious if there's anybody out there that's using, I don't know how to word this, but from Outlook, they're syncing, that's what I'm looking for, syncing their calendars from Outlook into TimeTrack and how that's working. We actually use Google at our school, so we'll have to go from Google to Outlook to TimeTrack, and we haven't got that to work yet, but I'm just interested to hear how that works for other people.
Is anyone who's online right now currently using the auto sync function of TimeTrack? So you're actually importing your your Outlook data?
Yes, we are in Springfield.
And how's that working for you?
Great. Great. It works great. Everything we put on the Outlook calendar syncs right with Sam's calendar.
And is it syncing the other way as well?
Yes.
All righty. Did you have much trouble
Mark?
setting that up?
None. Very easy.
Well, good. I'm kind of relieved to hear that because we've had kind of mixed reviews about how hard it is. If you have difficulty setting up your auto sync, if you let Jim know, he's happy to help you, and he'll also work with your technician. Jim, did you work with the tech in Springfield? Yeah. So anyhow, don't hesitate if you have any difficulty. Let Jim know, and he'd be happy to work with you.
Hi, Mark.
Yes.
This is Kim from Council Bluffs.
Hi, Kim.
And hi. And we are using Google now also. We just got it to sync this week. What we found was that we have to enter everything on Google and only allow it to sync that direction. And then, because I don't know if they've eliminated going through Outlook or if they're still using it. I think they were working with Jim to make it work, but now we just enter it into Google, and then I go to TimeTrack and manipulate it there. That's the way that we've gotten it to work.
Yeah, those are kind of workarounds that that I know that Jim has worked with different techies, and I know the Council Bluffs fellow has just been very helpful, and so we're kind of looking at how to do that. Right now, the only auto sync, and I'm going to go ahead and click on auto sync right here, that we have actually built into TimeTrack formally has been Outlook, and it works well once it's set up. We've had a number of people tell us they didn't have any trouble, just like we heard a moment ago, with AutoSync. We've been trying to do workarounds for people who don't use Outlook. For example, who use Google Calendar, iCalc, or Lotus Notes. One of the improvements that the software developer is working on right now for TimeTrack is to have a direct AutoSync with Google, iCalc, and Lotus Notes. Now, I do not expect that to happen until the end of this school year, though, because that's a relatively large project, and we're going to do some more work on the existing TimeTrack in terms of some of the back office functions before we do that next AutoSync piece. Other questions or comments? Anyone else using AutoSync want to share their experience? All righty. On AutoSync, when you do it, things that you sync in will come up in red, meaning just like this cluster meeting isn't being counted yet. You have to open it and tell it what descriptor you want to give it or what category you want to assign. All righty. Well, it's been a good time talking with everyone today. I think it's probably important to keep in mind that TimeTrack is essentially a principal's lesson plan or the district administrator's lesson plan, that it is part of a process where the principal schedules instructional work ahead of time to meet or exceed goal. A good SAM then prints the calendar for the principal or the district administrator every morning, and then once a day makes an effort to justify or reconcile the calendar for the day prior at a TimeTrack daily meeting. That's part of the daily meeting. The other part, of course, is asking the principal what follow-up needs to be scheduled based on what the work the principal or district administrator did. And then lastly, you want to talk about the impact on teacher practice because of this work. We've spent the last about 50 minutes talking about TimeTrack and the changes. I want to encourage you to make sure to let us know when there are other things you want to see TimeTrack do that it doesn't currently do, because we want to make sure that this is a tool that is helpful for you and easy to use. We're about at the end of our time. I wanted to check with you one more time to see if there's anything else you'd like to talk about before we close out. This is the third session we've done today. We'll continue doing these sessions until 4 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you'd like to log in at the top of the hour again, or if you just want to leave your computer open, if you want to do this again, we'd be happy to do it with you. So thanks for everyone for participating. Any other questions or comments for the good of the group before we finish?
I do have one question, Stephanie Tim from Mount Vernon. Will you provide PowerPoint to us at some point just to review?
Absolutely. We'd be happy to give you the PowerPoint.
Great. Thank you.
I'll have Jim send that for you out on Monday. Anyone else today?
Oh, thank you, Mark.
Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you soon, and I hope you have a great weekend. And we're going to go ahead and put this on mute until noon today, noon Eastern, and then we'll start all over again with the next presentation. Thanks, everybody. Have a great